Now, folks, if you'll just gather around a little closer now. Come right in a little closer. That's it. That's fine, folks.
All right, let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
So after a successful Gloves Are Rough, which seemed to be very popular, at least with the boxing crowd, where we found out Eubank Jr. is not that kid who never used to smile when he first started boxing, but actually he's a slick mouth, funny mouth. But yo, apparently his dad has pulled him out of the fight. That's what Chris Eubank Sr. is claiming. He's pulled him out. He doesn't like the 157-pound catch weight. He said his son's life cannot be put in danger. He's lost one already. It can't happen again. He's coming down 1 ounce below 160, which cannot happen on Eubank Sr.'s watch as far as he's concerned. It's a dangerous weight cut, basically. This is modern day gladiating. This is not a plaything for the audience. We have to be strict, otherwise lives are put in danger. My son's life cannot be put in danger. I've already lost one. It cannot happen again. So, where do we go from here? Looks like some mind games. I think Chris knows a little more about Conor than what Conor might want to give Chris Sr. credit for. And he certainly knows Nigel. And the Benns are going to be spitting molten lava right now as Eubank Sr. attempts to shift the initiative and perhaps claim A-side privileges here. Why are we doing this sacrifice? What has he done to make Junior have to lose an ounce under 160? Now the questions have to be asked, does Senior have that much authority over Junior that Junior is going to go along with his dad and not take the fight? Or is there a compromise? Is he against the whole concept of the catch weight, or 158 and a half? Would that make him happier? Or does he want it at 160 or nothing? Maybe he feels his son needs to be compensated more if he is going to make that weight cut. Eubank Senior and Junior possibly. I have a feeling this is not random. I have a feeling they waited for that anticipation to build up. They waited for estimations of what kind of pay-per-view numbers. I think all the tickets are sold apparently. And now that people are thirsty for the fight, they may feel they have leverage over DAZN and Eddie. And they probably do. But how far do they push it before DAZN and Eddie and Conor and Nigel just walk away from it? That's what they've got to consider. Now, Eubank Jr. has signed a contract. And ultimately it's his decision. And the quicker he steps up and says something to either confirm his dad's decision or go against his dad's decision, the better. The better for his career and the better for the boxing fans. That's all I'll say. It's fascinating how boxers have different approaches with coping with different situations. Like, I spoke about the fear factor with Josh Taylor before he fought Jack Catterall. You know, Josh was telling us, yeah, I'm not underestimating him. I'm training real hard for him. And I have no doubt he trained real hard for him. But after coming back from that side of the pond, fighting for 4 belts and having the American press wanting to know all about this Scottish kid from Edinburgh, was there a chance he was going to crash at the prospect of fighting in Scotland against the unknown, unfancied Jack Catterall? So you can say you're going to train hard and I'm taking him serious, but was he really? I was talking about you can't give yourself the fear factor, and Matthew Macklin was mirroring nearly everything I was saying. He's saying he's up for this, but can he really be up for this? Big favourite. How does Chris Eubank approach being a favourite? He doesn't say, I'm not underestimating Conor Benn. He says, I am underestimating him. He's smaller. He hasn't headlined no big events. He doesn't have the experience. Eubank says he'll be 60% because of the weight cut on the catch weight clause. But he says that will be more than enough to beat him. I have to underestimate him. What else do you want me to do? While other fighters would be saying, well, I know Conor is a dangerous fighter and I can't afford to take him lightly or overlook him. Chris is doing the opposite. I am overlooking him. You see, fighters say, I'm not going to underestimate him, I'm guessing, to keep themselves grounded, not add extra pressure on what their objectives are fight night. As a big favourite, Chris isn't running from the pressure of being the favourite. And his track record shows why he adopts this mindset. You look at the Yildirim fight in Germany. Yildirim's manager was going on like a crazy person and it was hostile. He went over there and took Yildirim out. Undefeated Yildirim. The Nick Blackwell fight. Nick had a procession led by Tyson Fury and Billy Joe Saunders and a lot of travellers baying for his blood at the Wembley Arena. But Chris mocked them, and even during the fight, he was making gestures to them like, yeah, I've got this. And he handled his business. He seems to thrive on the pressure on certain occasions. Now, you can say he didn't show up against Billy Joe Saunders for the first half of the fight or so, or you can point to the George Groves fight, but people lose as well, and just because you're confident, it doesn't mean you can't lose. But the evidence does show a guy who doesn't shy away from that. Hostile crowd. Liam Williams, that was in Wales. He silenced them quickly in the first round and floored Williams how many times? That was hostile territory. His last fight. Eubank has often been the villain in a lot of these fights, and he hasn't shied away. He knows that's why a lot of people have bought tickets to come see him lose or come see their fight to beat him up. He accepts the burden of being an overwhelming favourite against a smaller guy who hasn't fought even world-class welterweights. He's fought fringe contenders, faded fringe contenders, but he hasn't fought no world-class welterweights. He didn't even fight David Avanesian for the European title. So he's saying, yes, he's underestimating him. He will retire if he loses. What else do you want to throw in there? He'll take it. Perhaps a pro-Conor crowd screaming for him to destroy Chris? He'll take it. How much you paying me? He'll take it. That's his motivation. The fear that he would have to answer to the public and Conor if he loses. Well, what's happening with the retirement? I thought he was too small. I thought he was too inexperienced, because he would get trolled relentlessly if anything apart from a convincing victory in his favour happens. What was Conor Benn's motivation for taking this? Well, he wants to please his dad. That seems pretty obvious. Also, he believes Eubank is between styles. Would Nigel be keen for his son to face the volume-punching Eubank, who fought Nick Blackwell? He's came back with Roy, and we're seeing a lot more movement and a lot more emphasis on trying to hide his shots, picking his punches, punch selection, etc., etc. Eubank has also started playing poker, perhaps an ominous sign. Remember when David Haye picked up the poker habit around the time he had the Bellew fights? Does he have other interests that may conflict with the strict, disciplined regimen he had, like when he was on that Loose Women program and KT Price was putting the cougar moves on him, and he said, "My wife is boxing." That's what he literally said. He's not the same kid who we first saw in a boxing ring almost a decade ago, I'm guessing now, who didn't smile, was almost aloof and distant. We saw the 32-year-old in comparison to the early Chris Eubank in The Gloves Are Off. Witty, funny. Conor says, "Do you think I'll be a walk in the park?" Chris replied, "Like a nice summer's day," with comedic timing as well. It was quite hilarious, the dry humour at times, and the whole abstinence from sex. It'd take 8 weeks of abstinence to prepare for Canelo and Golovkin, 4 weeks for Billy Joe Saunders, 1 week for Jake Paul, and 2 for Conor. Funny. Also, we found out he had a girlfriend, and they're probably going at it like rabbits. I don't think he was doing that early in his career. So these are possible signs why Nigel and Conor are looking at a Eubank fight now. They don't believe he has the same fire that he may once have had. And that's all the window of opportunity they need to have a chance of succeeding in this fight, perhaps. In an interview with Stephen Bartlett, Chris at the start said, "I don't normally do interviews, and people don't normally see this side of me." And he was still processing the grief of losing his brother Sebastian. And he was explaining how he's changed since he was that young kid being chaperoned by his dad at the time. He said he needed his dad to keep the sharks away from him and invading his space because he wasn't mature enough to handle it. I'm paraphrasing a lot of what he's saying. But now, he's coming into his own. Conor's got a lot of growth to do. By the time Conor's Chris's age, he'll be a totally different person. Or maybe not totally different, but a lot different. Going back to Chris Sr. saying he's withdrawing Junior from the fight, while the weight cut might be a legitimate source of concern to him, I just believe now, him actually having first-hand experience of what it is to be a gladiator in the squared circle. And having to watch his son, Junior, take the same risks he was taking after just losing his son, Sebastian. I think Chris Sr. is in a vulnerable place right now. And hearing that his son has to sacrifice or compromise his weight advantage to make the fight, it's just not sitting well with him. That just sent him over the top. I hear the fight is going ahead, and I believe it will. If it does go ahead, will Chris Sr. be in his son's corner? His son seemed to want him there over Roy Jones. Will that have an effect on Junior? This is a very pivotal person in this man's career, in his life. Expect a few more twists and turns before we get this one in the ring. It's not too far away, but expect a few more twists and turns. Conor Benn did respond to the drama very briefly. Just sparred 10 rounds while somebody's having daddy issues. Teddy Atlas is entitled to his opinion, but Joshua is in a bit of a can't-win situation. If he knocks Luis Ortiz out, what are they going to say? He just lost to Andy Ruiz. He's not going to get no credit for it. I'll tell you what, if Teddy is saying that Anthony Joshua is overrated, you tell us who he should fight, Teddy. Who should Joshua fight? You're saying he hasn't fought nobody. He beat the guy you used to train, Povetkin. In fact, Povetkin became a better fighter when he left Teddy. Whether that was the meldonium enabling his performances, his form did pick up after he left Teddy. Look, Teddy is a reactionary, you know. Who's Wilder fought than Teddy? Who has he fought then? Take Tyson Fury out of Wilder's resume. Who's he fought? Luis Ortiz? Well, if AJ knocks out Luis Ortiz, you're still not going to give him no credit. Luis Ortiz, coming off the loss to Ruiz just a couple of weeks back, is calling out Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua. You can't fault his ambition, but in terms of him being a draw, how does he call out Anthony Joshua or Tyson Fury? I mean, okay, let's talk about the Joshua fight. That's more realistic than the Tyson Fury fight right now. Are you calling him out for Joshua to fight on the PBC, or are you prepared to take that walk to the other side of the street to Matchroom? Because that's the only platform it can happen on. Matchroom DAZN. He was offered that AJ fight, he didn't take it. I'm not against a Joshua Ortiz fight, even though Joshua would get no credit if he was to win. But it seemed like when he called out AJ and Fury, people were saying Derek Chisora, that's probably more his level now, isn't it? But look, here's the facts. It doesn't matter what British heavyweight he calls out. Derek Chisora, that's not a PBC fight, it's a Matchroom fight. Dillian fight, that's either a DAZN fight, a Boxer XX fight. Dillian might be shifting over to that side of the dealings. You got to come to the UK. There's no way you have enough drawing power to make fights with British heavyweights in America. Facts. Eddie Hearn isn't convinced that a big fight between Philippe HRGOVIC and Jared Anderson, the up-and-coming contender promoted by rival Top Rank, is a realistic matchup given where both fighters are at this point in their respective careers. Now, HRGOVIC recently beat Zhilei Zhang in a final IBF eliminator. That's one of the belts that Usyk is holding. Now, apparently, Jared Anderson called out HRGOVIC, who is now 30 years of age, which means there cannot be no more pussyfooting around or even waiting for title shots. These heavyweights cannot wait for title shots. They can't. Anderson apparently said he really would love that fight. Eddie told Akam Barak, "You think Bob Arum is going to put Jared Anderson in with Philippe HRGOVIC now? Like, seriously. He can say he will, but he wouldn't, because it would be mismanagement. The guy is a good young prospect. I know Philippe HRGOVIC's performance against Zhang wasn't great. They made an error saying Anderson. But he's an outstanding heavyweight. He was a world-class heavyweight. They just wouldn't make the fight." Hearn expects HRGOVIC to fight one more time before getting the call from the IBF for his title shot. Hearn said he is open to the idea of HRGOVIC fighting Anderson, but he insisted that Top Rank would have to express interest in making the fight. If he, Anderson, wants to fight Philippe HRGOVIC, Top Rank are welcome to reach out, Hearn said. I don't think it would be a bad fight for Jared Anderson. I don't think it would be, looking at Philippe HRGOVIC's form since he's turned pro. Jared Anderson. It would by far be his biggest test as a pro. Huge jump. Bob's talking about putting him in the mix. But that deep?
Well, we don't believe you. You need more people.
I'll believe it when I see it. And I'm not necessarily saying that Eddie Hearn wants to fight either. So recent events cancelled the big women's evening on Saturday. Boxing fans who were looking forward to that were disappointed. But we did get one good thing out of it. Although it don't make no sense. Frank Warren and Tyson Fury are putting AJ negotiations on hold. Why do you have to put AJ negotiations on hold? Ain't negotiations supposed to be in private? You mean you're putting Tyson Fury, Frank Warren propaganda that Usyk don't want the fight and AJ don't want the fight on hold? That's what you mean. But yeah, a few days silence from Frank and Tyson Fury and a ridiculous double act and Bob Arum chiming in occasionally. It's not entertaining. Go make the undisputed fight. A lot of people believe that radio silence means next they're going to announce the Manuel Charr fight or the Derek Chisora fight. Wouldn't put it past them. Oscar De La Hoya, any Al Heyman fighter is going to be a problem for making fights. He's not entirely confident that cross-promotional fights with the PBC can be made through no fault of his own. And he's pinning the blame squarely on PBC's creator, Al Heyman. Now, he's talking about making the Garcia-Davis fight. He's also talking about Munguia, I would assume, because there's not much after that. I mean, he's got Virgil, Ortiz, and a few other fighters. Now, while I have no issue picking apart the PBC and taking them to task, Ryan Garcia had the opportunity to fight Devin Haney for the WBC belt and didn't take it. He wanted an eliminator to fight Devin. He pulled out of a fight with Jojo Diaz, a stablemate of his. He's done a lot of messing around. Jaime Munguia had a title shot with Andrade, declined it. He's not fighting Johnny Beck. So while the PBC do make it awkward, Golden Boy haven't exactly been accommodating to putting their talent in the right fights that the fans want to see either. Doesn't sound like they're screaming or kicking down the door to get Munguia to fight Jamal Charlo. Kell Brook ready to return? Question mark. Fierce sparring clip emerges. Let's have a look at this sparring clip. Toe to toe, yeah. Well, if he is returning, he's not just going to take any fight. I believe maybe a Khan rematch. I reckon they can coax Khan to come out one more time. His wife may not want that. I watched a couple of the reality shows the other day. She certainly won't want that. Or the likely opponent could be him and Dominic targeting the winner out of Eubank and Benn.